Today we're going to make a crispy, sweet short pastry. We're not going to use any solid fats or butter or margarine. We're going to use extra virgin olive oil. We're going to make what I call a pastry syrup, an emulsion of oil, sugars, and milk. This is going to create a gel that will evenly hydrate the flour and make a pliable, soft dough, which we can use to line our tart shells. So now this part you can do in a mixing bowl with a whisk or with a hand blender. We just want a simple way of combining the sugar. So we have caster sugar, muscovado or dark brown sugar, soy milk, and the extra virgin olive oil. So then to this mixture we can also add our aromatics. So our lemon zest and some vanilla. So I'm just using paste today. I just find it to be a really efficient way of using vanilla because you don't have to worry about what's going to happen to the pods. So I could combine this with a whisk in a bowl, but I'm going to do it here. So when you mix this mixture with a whisk, you do get like a thick syrup that seems really nicely emulsified. But when you use a blender or a hand blender, you get a really thick, emulsion, somewhat akin to a mayonnaise. I'm going to add the salt to the flour and just give that a light mix, and then add my pastry syrup, which kind of looks like a brown mayonnaise. Pretty amazing. A hand blender is probably the easiest way to combine this mixture. When you blend sugar with olive oil, something really magical happens. It takes on this incredibly delicious flavor profile. Now, this stage you could be doing in an electric mixer with a beater attachment, but I'm just going to mix it by hand to show you how easy it can be. We're working this olive oil and sugar emulsion into the flour. I'm gonna get my hands dirty now and start kneading. So just kind of rubbing everything together until it's all starts to combine. So you can see that as I'm working it, it's starting to form a dough. So then we can turn out our dough. I'm just going to press this together and then lay it onto a piece of parchment paper. Place another piece on top, and we'll just start to press it down. So we want to press it down first, then turn it 45, and then press it in the other direction, and then start to roll it down to about 3 millimeters thickness. And I just find that using 2 sheets of paper like this works so well because it lets you handle the dough much more easily. Then I've got a loose bottom tart case, and I'm just going to peel away the top sheet of paper and then trim around the tart shell, leaving about just a bit higher than the height of the tart shell across. This way we have enough to line our tart shell. And I'm just getting rid of that excess. And then this is where paper comes in handy. I'm going to use it to lay my pastry into the tart case. I'm going to use it to position the pastry on top and then very gently lift the pastry into the tart case. And then just pressing, I'm just lifting the pastry in and pushing it down into the corners. The pastry may start to crumble, it's fine, just use any offcuts or pieces to press them down. So we just want to make sure that we're pressing that pastry right into the corner here. That way that when we bake it, the edges don't sink because we don't need to use any paper to pre-bake this pastry. So here I'm short a bit of pastry, so I'm just pressing an extra piece of pastry on top. So just pressing it across, making sure that it's a nice even thickness. Now I've lined, I'm just going to run my paring knife against the edge of the tin, and then so this lovely lime tart, I'm just going to use a fork to prick the base. Just going to make sure that it doesn't puff up too irregularly when it's baking. The one good thing about this pastry recipe is that we can just chill this down in the freezer while the oven preheats, and then we can bake it without using any paper or baking beans or rice. Just bake it as is. And I've got some leftover dough, which I'm going to re-roll for another tart. When I par bake my pastry, I like to basically bake it. Especially once they're filled and then baked again, I find that they don't really take on much color. So if I was to bake this quite pale, it would stay pretty pale in color and in flavor. So basically when I say par bake, I'm fully baking my pastry. So that without the paper lining should take about 8 minutes. Depending on the thickness of your pastry, it could take up to 12 minutes, but this is quite thin and I've baked it for about 8 minutes. But do use your eyes, you want it to be a nice golden color.